very specifically, I wrote it for Frances about 7 or 8 years ago. Well, I guess with Frances's voice in my head and her past performances in my head. So we sent it to her a couple of years after that, maybe a little later than that. And if she hadn't said yes, we'd have been screwed. I don't know what we'd have done. But luckily, after she thought about it for a little bit, she said yes. And yeah, she's perfect for it. And she hit it out of the park, as you say over here.
It's an amazing character. I'm very lucky to have been a part of it. And Martin wrote an amazing role. And yeah, it has a kind of an arc to it. And I call it the Barney Fife turns into Travis Bickle arc.
I guess we just try to never lose track of the sad, painful beginning of the story, which is what has happened to Mildred's daughter in the 7 or 8 months prior to the story starting. And I think every day we kind of kept that in the forefront of our minds, that we knew where the humor was in the script, but we always had to keep, especially Mildred's drive, true to the sad beginning and the sadness that never really leaves her. So it was always paying tribute to the daughter, I guess, and keeping it as truthful as possible.
I think we all knew that it was, at its fundamental core, a story about grief and trauma, and lots of things come out of that experience, and sometimes it's funny.
Especially when you cuss. There's lots of good cussing in the movie. So.
Swearing also always helps.
I like actors a lot, and I think it shows in all of the films I've done that there's a room that we can find between ourselves, between the script and what you guys come up with. There's a respect and a room to maneuver, even though I don't really change the script at all once we're in there,
no matter
which is
how
fantastic.
much we ask.
Beg, plead. But the respect that's there is that I listen to everything as long as you do what I say.
But because I have a life in the theater, that's the ongoing work. And films, then I have the luxury of choosing films because my work comes from the theater, my foundation of my work. But so recently it was interesting because I was offered 2 roles, both 60-year-old women. Both had recently lost their husbands. One was grief-stricken over losing her husband, and the other was quite happy about it. I don't really want to do either of them, but if I chose one, it would be the one that was happy about it, just for fun, right? So I think that what's great about Mildred is that it is not, she does stand out of, she stands out of time in our culture because she's not based on ageism. It's not about her trying not to be her age or pretending to be or having to carry the mantle of a female of a certain age. She's just a mother who's lost her child. We had a wonderful, wonderful stunt coordinator who's
Doug Coleman.
Yeah, he choreographed the Revenant, the bear scene in the Revenant. Yeah,
he's a fire expert. That's his. He's a pyro, so we were really lucky to have him.
He's awesome. Yeah, but I believe you would. I something about Frances that I believe that scene when you get up on that billboard to put that fire out. There's something about you that I just believe you might do something like that. I just, because you. I don't know. It's just there's a superhero quality there, and I really buy that scene, and maybe it's just the way Frances sells it, with that clarity and that emotion, But anyway,
that's the magic of movies. We get to try all these fun things.
I mean, no one wants to go through what Frances's character has in this film, but I like her single-minded rage and her not taking shit from anyone and her protest, I guess, for want of a better word. And I'm kind of, as an outsider, intrigued as to what's going on in America at the moment. my take on it is that it's not all bad, because there are so many people getting angry and doing something about it, which hasn't really been there in the past, 40 or 50 years since Vietnam and civil rights and those issues. So anger and protest, and I think you might have a different take on that, Fran, but I think it's there could be something cathartic and intriguing about it when it's done as it is in most of the story, in a non-violent way, until she can't do that anymore.
One of the things I learned when I don't do a lot of research, but one of the things that was revealed to me in talking to people is that the simple fact that, not so simple, but the very complicated fact that when you lose a spouse, you're a widow or a widower. When you lose your parents, you're an orphan. When you lose a child, there's no word. There's no word in the English language for that position, that place that you're left. And we talked a lot about, just technically, for Mildred at least, that there was Angela's death, then 7 months of paralysis, and then she became radicalized. She chose, when she made the decision to rent those billboards, she had her son shave the back of her head, she put on the jumpsuit, and then she was willing to go the distance, knowing that there was going to be collateral damage, most importantly Robbie, her son, but that the only way that she could survive was by action and not paralysis. So I think that is the most specific and subjective part of the story, the way that I think that great literature can help a larger cultural conversation is that you take that and apply it to cultural grief and trauma, which I think in America we've been under, not just since September 11th, but since the industrialization of our country. We have not been able to find the right path since then, because we were built on an agricultural society and a nomadic society. It was all about going west, and then there was no more west to conquer, and I think we got really confused.
Hope for some kind of connection. I hope it's not the trailer. I think that I love the trailer, but there's a depth to the film that maybe the trailer doesn't quite convey. But I think there's still enough love and compassion and humor in the film to not disappoint anyone who's just going for the trailer gags. I don't know. It's a film I'm really happy with. So you just hope that there's enough people out there who it will connect with, and sometimes it takes time. In Bruges didn't really, to a degree, work for a year or two. Certainly didn't have anyone come to see it in the States or Canada, but it grew into a cult kind of film here, and back in Europe too. I hope this is a bit more than a cult film that no one sees for 10 years, but if that's what happens, that's what happens. But I hope there might be more of a connection this time around. But you never know. All we can do is make the best film that we can, and we have, and we're really happy with it. So we just hope enough people will feel the same way.
Frances, what do you hope people get out of it?
I'm going to step out there. If you know Greek tragedy, there's a lot of laughs in Greek tragedy. So when you take something this high and you stick your neck out this far, as Martin has done, then you gotta give the totality of the human experience. And just funny and just sad is not the totality, but pathos and humor are Greek.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey,